we're going to talk to you today about the Sustainable Drainage Strategy Framework. So we're going to run through the 6 principles that are in the Drainage Strategy Framework. Could I get a show of hands for people who have heard about this document or know about it? Okay, so a few in the room. So we're going to run through the different principles, and we're just going to frame our presentation today based on the principles within that Drainage Strategy Framework. The reason that we're doing that is because we feel that that Drainage Strategy Framework has allowed us to move towards a more sustainable approach. So it's helped us as a tool to be able to think about partners that we work with and local communities and how we maximise those benefits, and also how we consider having a sustainable water and wastewater stewardship of our network. So I mentioned at the start it's a Sustainable Drainage Strategy Framework, but what is sustainability? So it's used quite a lot, the term is used quite a lot. When you look it up, probably the most definition that's used is the definition for sustainable development that came from the Brundtland Commission. And I'm going to read that just so I get it right. It's sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. It's moved on a little bit since then. So it talks about responsible and proactive decision making. It talks about innovation that maximises benefits. Making sure that you look towards economics, ecology, politics and the culture, and trying to make sure that you maximise those benefits, and ensuring a desirable planet for all the species and now and into the future. And I guess the approach that Northumbrian Water used to fit in some of those circles, but not in them all. So we're really trying to make sure that we think about what it is that we're doing and try to make sure that we keep within that red circle right in the centre of those, so that we do have a more sustainable approach. So a little bit about the Drainage Strategy Framework for those who don't know. So the DEFRA Water for Life white paper recognised that there's a need for a strategic approach to drainage planning. So we have it on the water side already in terms of wastewater or water resources, but we didn't really have that on the drainage side or the sewerage side. So EA and Ofwat produced a document, the Drainage Strategy Framework. It contains 6 principles: partnership, uncertainty, risk-based, whole life costs and benefits, live process, and innovative and sustainable. And it talks about a catchment scale, so it's thinking about systems rather than just thinking about one issue on the network. And it's thinking about drainage, so it's not just thinking about a water company's perspective, it's also thinking about those other things that impact on drainage. And the whole idea is that it's meant to provide confidence that outcomes can be achieved in the long term following this principle. So I'll hand you over to Richie for the first principle.
The first principle we've subtitled Better Together. It's about partnership working. And it's got nothing to do with any referendums in the past or which are present at the moment. We believe it's better together because we can achieve better for our communities, working together with other partners than we can doing it in silos. So what have we done? Drainage systems are complex, they're interdependent on each other, and they don't follow the guidance and the responsibilities that exist with the risk management authorities. So this was recognised by Ofwat in the EA, so they put in the partnership approach. They stated that water and sewerage companies can't develop optimum drainage strategies on our own, and therefore partnership is key. Now, the Drainage Strategy Framework highlighted as good practice the work that Northumbrian Water carried out in the past to the Tyneside study. So the Tyneside study was a link with all those local authorities and the Environment Agency, which along the Newcastle and Gateshead corridor to the Tyne. We've developed that further to include the 13 lead local flood authorities for the whole of our region into the Northumbria Integrated Drainage Partnership, so the NIDP for short. And what the NIDP has done is taken all the catchments that we have, all the drainage areas, linked that with the issues that other local authorities, the EA, have, and prioritised some studies. And those prioritised studies are in a 3-phased approach. So the first phase of what we've done is to carry out data collection of all the issues, so we can have a prioritised list. Then we produce options, evaluate those options for costs and benefits, and then the third phase is to actually implement some solutions. Now, throughout the presentation, we'll be highlighting some good practice areas that the Drainage Strategy Framework has in it. I'm not going to read it, but basically what it says under partnership is that we as water companies should be alert to opportunities which are available. We should be flexible to take into account other parties' priorities and their funding requirements, and we should consider installing solutions to bring additional non-water company benefits and assets, and that's an important thing. And that's what we've done, or that's what we've believed we've done. We've done this in a number of locations. This is just an example. This is at Brunton Park in North Newcastle. In the past, there's been over 100 properties which have flooded. Some have flooded from the sewerage system, some have flooded from the nearby river, which is the Ousburn, and some lucky souls get a combination of both. So we at Northumbrian Water identified a traditional solution to that, and that traditional solution, for want of a technical term, was a whopping big storage tank with whopping big pumps. But that only solves some of the issues that we had and what the residents had. So we thought it would be a good idea to join with others under the Drainage Strategy Framework. So we joined together with Newcastle City Council and the Environment Agency, and we launched a joint project. Now that joint project identified solutions to all the issues at Brunton Park. What it did include was installing upgrade sewerage system in the estate. It included putting in flood walls and bunds for protection against the river. But what was novel is, rather than a large storage tank, it did divert the river Ousburn and used the existing channel as a sud storage basin. So the two gentlemen up there, one is Paul Davison on the left. He's a project manager, works for Northumbrian Water. The gentleman on the right is Phil Welton, and he's the EA flood manager for our region. There was two major stakeholders who we needed to get on board as part of this work. One was the City of Newcastle golf course, because we were diverting the Ousburn into their golf course. They were a big objector to that at the beginning of the works. We got on board an international golf course designer, and that's how we got a hook to get their benefits. So they could understand their benefits, we got them on board. The second one was the local community. And the local community, we, as part of the works, had to demolish their existing playground. So we collaborated with the local community. We carried out some consultation, and we got them to design their own playground, which has been installed July, August of this year. Just like to express, that's one of the elements where we're looking for benefits for other people rather than just ourselves. Now, next principle is dealing with uncertainty. And we've just entitled this No Crystal Ball. Since we don't have a crystal ball and we don't know where it's going to rain, and up until recently we didn't know where the flooding was going to occur from our sewerage system, we decided to carry out some drainage area studies. Now these drainage area studies, there was 130 in total. They took in 27% of all the drainage areas in Northumbrian Water's region. But what they did do, they covered 75% of our population. So our drainage area studies, or DASs for short, they modelled the sewerage network, and they modelled the combined foul and surface water systems in each area. They were there for existing flood risk and future flood risk. So we carried out the future scenarios. Those future scenarios included uncertainties that may occur in climate change, growth and urban creep. Now, as part of this work, we had to develop some overland flow routing tools, because at the time the overland flow routing tools we didn't feel were adequate or up to what we expected of them. So we developed with our consultants a tool called Dream 2D, and as part of our sharing with them, we've allowed them to use that for other clients. We're not going to market it, it's free for them to use wherever they want. Now, for good practice, the Drainage Strategy Frameworks also suggests that we should be looking at installing low regret measures, and this is to deal with those uncertainties on growth and climate change. Now, we believe that working together and installing green infrastructure is key to us dealing with those uncertainties and dealing with those low regrets. What else we've done to identify and to work with others and to understand uncertainty is working in partnerships with others, such as Newcastle City Council. So we have delivered two of their surface water management plans. That's for the Eusburn, which is the Gosforth Jesmond area of Newcastle, and the city centre itself. What that has done is allowed our investment to be aligned with their investment. And also through that period, we've also identified other areas which we can work with them. One of those areas is working on their highways improvements programme. So we're using their highways improvement programme to see what can we store that normally goes in our sewage system, what can we work collaboratively with to produce better installations in flood risk reduction. One of those is at Woodhouse roundabout in North Newcastle. It's a roundabout which is very congested. The highway drainage at the moment goes into the combined sewage system. That combined sewage system has a flood risk. We know that. We've carried out a number of schemes in the past to alleviate flooding in that locality. We are going to work with Newcastle City Council. We're planning to contribute to their scheme to take those out, manage the flows in swales and sustainable drainage, take it with us to a surface water system, which we will have to carry out some work on to increase the capacity, but that reduces the flood risk in that area. It also reduces flows going to treatment and also reduces the number of times spills from combined sewer overflows. So working together with this uncertainty has allowed us to identify other areas where we can be flexible. Another principle, and sorry if I'm going through the principles quite quickly, but I'm conscious on time. This is a risk-based approach. For 10, 15 years, we've been very good at being reactive to sewer flooding issues. When flooding occurs, we can deal with them quite well and install measures so they don't happen again. Now, the problem with that is we've now got all this data. And if we've got all this data and we're not going to use it, what's the point? So we're moving to a proactive approach rather than going reactive. We'd rather deal with things before customers suffer flooding. So what we're doing is working with our communities on what we're calling community action plans. This is working with the communities and local partners and anybody else who's interested in those areas, taking the 130 drainage area studies, identifying those areas of high risk, working with the partners to understand those risk measures and the mechanisms of flooding. We're then educating communities, working with them to reduce the risk of flooding in their area, and that's taking into account not just what we can do, but what they can do as well. Now, each community action plan area is different, and we have a number of measures which we've installed so far or are planning to install. For instance, we've installed free water butts in areas to identify what benefit that has. It also gets people engaged and educates them as well. We've also worked with a home group who are a supplier of rented accommodation and carried out a garden competition to disconnect highway drainage from an area which has known flood risk to take it into a water garden that the community have designed and the community will upkeep on our behalf. So although the delivery of community action plans is a proactive flood risk measure, we're really looking for what else we can bring to the community, as well as flood risk reduction, as what assets we can give, how can we maximise their benefits. One of the outcomes of our community action plans is that trying to identify the benefits which are best for customers and what they really want in their communities. That has made us look at the solutions which we've traditionally installed. We went through a big process of trying to produce a list of prioritised solutions. We failed miserably on that, so we now just have a hierarchy of solutions. And those hierarchy of solutions are to promote green infrastructure and surface water management. So the hierarchy, just to read it, it's to remove surface water whenever we can. It's to retain it at a property level, that being water butts, rain gardens and the like. Divert it to a nearby surface water system or a sustainable drainage element if there's one available. If not, construct one as in storage. So when we're talking storage, we're not talking big concrete tanks, we're talking sustainable green infrastructure. I'll pass you back to.
So the next principle is around whole life costs and benefits. And our title for this one is, it's not just about the money, but. So when they talk about whole life costs and benefits within the drainage strategy frameworks, it talks about costs, which are capital costs, operational costs, and also the costs if the sewage network fails. So the costs of pollutions, monetised cost of pollutions, or monetised costs of flooding. But it also talks about benefits, so it's not just the benefits of the risk reduction from pollutions and from flooding, it's also around society benefits and benefits that we can give to communities. So one of the examples that we're going to talk to you about is around Killingworth. So Killingworth is an area in Newcastle, and it is, sorry, North Tyneside, I'm getting my geography wrong, and it is an area that has suffered from sewer flooding and from river flooding in the past. And together we're working in partnership with the EA and the council in this area to try and understand what we can do. Newcastle, the Killingworth and Longbenton scheme is really, really unusual because we got together with our partners, as the Drainage Strategy Framework says, and we talked about what is the right thing to do, what's the maximum benefits that we can bring to this area, and we've come up with a really, really clever and a really, really good solution, or certainly one that we think is really clever, quite unique, quite innovative and very sustainable. The whole idea behind Killingworth is that we can maximise the amount of benefits that we give to the community. So for example, we're diverting a water course into another water course that's going to go through a school. So we're putting in some suds into that school, so educational benefit for that school. We're also increasing storage space in a Killingworth lake and providing some new walks around that lake so people can access it. And that provides some flood risk reduction, but it also provides some amenity benefit for the community. When we look as a water company, though, at a risk reduction scheme, a flood risk reduction scheme, there are certain benefits that we look at. The benefits to us are around the risk reduction of flooding, the risk reduction of pollution, reduction or increase in headroom into our treatment works. But when you ask our partners what they want, well, they have a whole range of other things that they look at. So, for example, the council, they have a surface water management plan. Killingworth and Longbenton featured quite heavily on that. They've got a biodiversity action plan. Again, there was things that they wanted to do in the community that we would be able to help them with this scheme. They have a green infrastructure strategy. Again, fits in perfectly to the scheme that we're trying to bring about. And a climate change and carbon management strategy. So when you put all that together, we as a water company come to the problem and we think about reducing flooding. We think about improving water quality from a Water Framework Directive point of view. We think about reducing wastewater treatment needs, but actually when you ask our partners, they think about all these benefits as well. So they think about facilities, facilitating growth, they think about amenity benefit, quite a lot of different benefits there. And when you start thinking about those benefits, and those different schemes can really add up. So putting a tank in the ground doesn't give you these benefits, but actually working in partnership, thinking about the whole life costs and benefits can really make some of these schemes come true. So innovative and sustainable, this is the last and final principle, I promise. This is actually the fifth principle, but we wanted to put it at the end because actually we think, no, I'm wrong, there's one more. Sorry, I do apologise. There is one more after this, sorry. Innovative and sustainable, we think everything that we do is innovative and sustainable. I hope you think so after some of the projects that we've been talking about. And it does promotes the full evaluation of alternatives to traditional engineering sewage solutions. So like Richie said earlier, we do think about what we can do. So community action plans, we're giving away free water births in certain areas just to see if that works. We're thinking about suds for schools, so we're going in and we're actively engaging with school children. That pester power can be absolutely amazing. Excellent. We're going in and doing education sessions with local communities so that they really understand what their flood risk benefits, what their flood risk is, and what they can actually do to help themselves. Last one, I promise.
And not take long. So the last principle is make sure that the process is live. And I think that if I think back to what we did 5 years ago and what we do now, the two are completely different. If I think that what we do in 5 years from time will be the same as now, if that's the case, I think we've failed. So I want to think back of what we used to do. This is not even 5 years ago, this is 2 or 3 years ago. So we had the Tyneside study and then the Northumbria Integrated Drainage Partnership, which was trying to identify schemes that we could do together. We've moved that to produce and install things together. we've moved from, as Eilis said, of education of suds in schools to actually installing suds in schools. This fits quite nicely onto Chris's presentation after this. So that's Felgate Estate in South Tyneside. And we've gone from traditional solutions. This is a storage tank in Newcastle that I was a project manager for, and I was dead proud of that at the time. And the actual storage created by the detention basin on the right is significantly greater at a less cost and much more environmentally friendly. This has all led to Northumbrian Water signing a pledge as part of the Blue Green Cities initiative to install green sustainable solutions wherever possible. This was at their event on the 14th of March. If you don't know about Blue Green Cities, just Google Blue Green Cities, a consortium of universities getting together to try to promote green infrastructure. So we believe that we can go forward by adapting the drainage strategy framework from its purpose to being a more sustainable drainage strategy framework. Thank you very much. These are just some pictures from awards which we've had. There's also the Water Industry Award 2016 which we've won, but I couldn't find the banner for that in time. These are our contact details. Feel free to contact us if you didn't understand whatever myself and Eilis was saying due to our accents, or you want any further information. Thank you.
Okay, can we have just a couple of questions? If you can speak up, unless Paul's going to take the microphone around. If you can say who you are and where you're from.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. Phil Gelder, Richard Atlas Associates. Richard, question for you, if that's okay. On the community action plans, who actually owns the action plan itself? Because I presume that within there, there'll be actions within there that are not within, say, your remit, City Council's remit or something or other.
We own the action plan. It's our initiative, but we would like to think that it's everyone's bought into it. So I think the buy-in is key from all, and that's from everybody involved, from local residents to community groups to flood action groups to the local authorities. We want to talk and deal with everybody. The previous sponsor before Eilis took over was saying, we want to get the pub start team involved. We want to get as many people as we can because we want to leave a lasting legacy. We don't want to be there for a short period of time. We want to be there for however long we can, in all honesty. We hope for not to be going anywhere, Phil.